Every life begins mid-weave, not on a blank page, but on thread already in motion. She came into the world with threads in her hand, woven before she could understand. Stories of silence, love and strain, colors of joy and whispers of pain. Very not the first to fray, but one whose fabric wore away, not in shouts but in the quiet wear, the kind that lingers thin as air. This is not just a tale of despair, it's a tapestry torn yet still repairable. Not the fall but the thinning seam, where the thread first loosens beneath the dream. Sit beside the loom, don't pull, don't press, just trace the cloth and notice the stress. Where it hurts is where it mattered, and where it mattered life can be gathered. In her laugh was light, in her eyes deep seas, but beneath a quiet disease. She asked too much, felt not enough, a patchwork soul, tender and tough. The weight of being unseen grew, not dramatic, just achingly true. Ruminations like threads on repeat, moments of beauty then quiet defeat. We meet her not at the cliff's sharp edge, but where she stood near the splayed out ledge, before the scream, before the leap, where silence stitched her in too deep. This is not just a tale of despair, it's a story of pain that wanted care. Where the thread first tugged and the weave grew thin is where her reweaving can begin. Sit beside the loom, no rush, no test, just ask what thread still pulls from her chest. Because what phrase is tied to what matters, and what matters can stitch new chapters. The cloth is worn, not lost to time, we follow the thread, one tender line. This is not what's left these unsheltered.
Welcome back to a new season of the Protect Suicide Prevention podcast. It's been a little while. For those who have been following this podcast before, thank you for your patience. And for those just tuning in, welcome. This new season of the Protect Suicide Prevention Training podcast marks a return, but also a transformation. Over the past year, I've been deeply immersed in writing, reflecting, and reimagining how we support people navigating the edge of despair. Together with collaborators across the globe, we have completed 4 books in the STEP series, each one exploring a different phase of suicidal distress and how we might respond not only with safety, but with meaning. Many of you may remember Sunny's Value Scouts, our values-based resilience series for children. Sunny, a golden retriever, wandered into a magical world called Terra Vale, where he and his animal friends discovered a new value in every story. It was playful, imaginative, and deeply rooted in the same framework we now bring into adult therapeutic practice. Because the truth is, values are not just for children. They are what hold us in life's darkest hours. This podcast is now an extension of that work, Steps for Hope. It's a space where story meets science, where metaphor meets method, and where music meets meaning. You will notice something new this season: songs. Each episode begins and ends with an original track written and produced to accompany a specific theme or passage from the book. These tracks are created using AI and they bring emotional resonance for the educational journey. Eventually, they will be available, I hope, on Spotify under a banner called MKR Studios. MKR standing for Meaningful Knowledge Reimagined. Also happens to be the initials of myself, Manaan Kar Ray, and my daughter, Mahi Kar Ray. All our names have the same initials, actually. Anyway, why music? Because stories stay with us, but melodies echo longer still. I'm doing this solo now. My daughter and former co-host Mahi is currently studying medicine in the UK. Her own musical journey continues in a different direction through Medlock Holmes, a playful, fast-paced, rap-based anatomy series that brings medical learning to life through music. That's what gave me the idea, actually. What started as a way to make anatomy memorable has quickly grown into something much bigger in terms of a project. So the plan is to cover every medical discipline over the next 4 years: bones, brain, bugs, and beyond, everything. So you can find Medlock Holmes on Spotify and Apple Music. And if you're enjoying this podcast and our innovative approach to learning, chances are you will enjoy those tracks too. It's already sparked some great reactions from doctors, nurses, paramedics, physios, OTs, and even a few psychiatrists, some of my mates, who have said, I just got a full anatomy refresher and I didn't even mean to. So if you know someone in healthcare, a colleague, a student, a friend, pass it on, because learning can be lyrical and memory, sometimes it sticks best when it rhymes. But here in this space, I am doing something quieter, something more reflective, something deeply human. We begin the season with a story that opens Steps for Hope. At the heart of this new journey is Ari, our central character in Steps for Hope. Ari's story is not just one of despair, but of rediscovery, of navigating life's complexities and finding meaning even in the darkest moments. Through Ari, we explore the nuanced tapestry of human experience. And it's Ari's journey that will guide us as we move forward in this podcast. But before diving into Ari's story, I do want to mention a couple of things that we have been up to in terms of our global work that we have been doing. So in this past year, the work hasn't only deepened, it has widened. We have seen the Protect framework being translated into Malay, and hopefully it will very soon come out as a certification program in Malaysia offered through UPSI. So it's been quite humbling to witness local wisdom interweaving with our shared language of hope. And alongside the writing, the music, and the teaching, we've been building something else, a global map of life-affirming innovation. It's called Atlas, Analytics for Transforming Life-Affirming Solutions. A living, breathing digital resource, Atlas offers a dedicated page for every World Health Organization recognized country, 195 in total, each one spotlighting suicide prevention data, strategies, and innovations unique to that region. But Atlas is not just a database, it's an invitation, a call to learn from one another, to elevate not only what's working, but where it's working. Because prevention isn't one size fits all. It's shaped by culture, by context, by courage. Some pages highlight national helplines and government-funded frameworks. Others uplift grassroots interventions, peer-led safe spaces, culturally anchored rituals, even storytelling circles that reduce shame and rebuild connection. It's a project rooted in shared humanity, and it's still growing. So if you're listening and you feel connected to this mission, like we are heard in over 100 countries now. If you are a clinician, a policymaker, a survivor, a student, or someone simply passionate about preventing suicide in your part of the world, we would love your help. Whether it's translating a page, contributing local knowledge, or keeping your country's entry current, Atlas grows best when it's nourished by many hands. Together, we can build not just a map of prevention, but a mosaic of hope. I'll provide the link in the description of the podcast as well, so you all can take a look at that list. So before we step into our story, let me introduce 3 threads that will quietly guide our journey throughout this season. 3 frameworks that weave through every conversation, every reflection, and every song. Steps, hope, and values. So the first is the STEPS framework. Anyone who has attended the Protect training would know about it. A metaphorical map of the suicidal journey. As we delve into the frameworks that guide us, it's important to understand that STEPS, which stands for Steps to Evaluate Progression of Suicidality, is more than just a framework. It's a tapestry, a woven metaphor that captures the complexity of the human experience. That's what you would find in Steps 1, the first book in that series of 4 Steps books. It's a tapestry, a woven metaphor that captures the complexity of the human experience. Each element, fabric, thread, needle, tip, the tip of the needle that is, mend and flow, is not just a word, but an acronym, each representing a different phase and a different set of questions and steps. Just like a loom brings together threads to create a beautiful, cohesive whole, the STEPS framework weaves together these elements to help us understand and respond to suicidality in a compassionate, values-driven way. Imagine life as a tapestry, woven not only from joy and meaning, but also from grief, isolation, and silent struggle. The STEPS framework traces this tapestry not through pathology, but through lived experience. We begin with fabric, the foundational weave of life, where predisposition takes shape. These are the early threads: temperament, trauma, disconnection, overwhelm, not yet visible distress, but a quiet shift in the loom. Then comes thread, the stage of ideation. Here, thoughts begin to form, often circling inwards. Questions of worth, whispers of escape, not a plan, but a pull. Needle follows, the sharpening of intention, a point where thoughts start to cohere. The risk quietens, but it deepens, and the conversation must slow. Tip is the point of action. It's the rupture, the moment where internal distress spills outward into the physical world. The tip of the needle pierces through. Then we enter mend, the space of postvention and possibility. Here, after the act, the cloth is not discarded, but held, stitched, slowly restored, if gently met. Finally, we come to flow, the continuation of life, the flow of life, the rejoining of movement, where the story doesn't end in survival, but begins in motion, uncertain, but still unfolding. That is the STEPS arc, a gentle companion to the path no one chooses but many walk. And then there is hope, the framework that guides the gentle reweaving of life after the rupture, where STEPS maps the arc of suicidal distress, and value, which is the third framework, which we'll talk about in a moment, shapes the conversation in the moment. Hope invites us into the work of living forward. It is not a formula, but a 4-part rhythm. Help or harm, own my values, people and pursuits, and enact and evaluate. This is part of the Safe Life Guide mobile application, which I hope all of our listeners do have and are using. So if you don't, do download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. And there are videos in there that will help you with the hope framework as well. So hope and these movements that are in there help us discern which threads sustain us and which fray us further. They guide us to remember what matters, reconnect with meaning, and slowly stitch those values into action. Hope is not just the goal, it's the practice. A way to meet the pain without running from it, to trace distress back to its source in love, longing, and purpose, and to begin even in uncertainty, to stitch again. The third and final companion to our journey is the value method, a 5-step process for therapeutic conversation rooted in presence, meaning, and human dignity. This is the book Steps for Hope, the fourth book in that series of steps. It begins with V, validate and reflect. Meeting pain with understanding rather than urgency, letting the person know what you're feeling makes sense, and using values to do that. Then ask openly, open questions, motivational interviewing strategies, not just about now, but about before and what might come after. We explore past pain, present needs, and future fears through questions that open rather than close. L, locate, strength, and affirm. We highlight what has already held them, what still matters even in the darkest hour. U, unpack the value. This is the heart of it. We'll listen beneath the distress for the threads of meaning. What does this pain point toward? What matters so much it hurts? And finally, E, end with a meaningful reframe, offering not solutions, but shifts, a sentence, a symbol, a small reframing that allows life to feel like a little more livable. As we journey through this season, you will notice that each episode is intricately woven around the steps framework. Each letter in fabric, thread, needle, tip, mend, and flow represents not only a phase of the journey, but also a deeper exploration of values. For each of these letters, we will uncover 3 core values, sometimes more, that resonate with that specific stage of the tapestry. These values will guide our conversations and reflections, offering therapeutic opportunities to respond with empathy and understanding. And as we move through Ari's story, you will see how these frameworks, steps, hope, and the value method intertwine, creating a rich, multi-layered narrative that leads us not only to deeper understanding, but to meaningful action. Each episode in this section will follow a quiet rhythm. First a song to open the emotional space, then a story narrated like a letter or a lullaby, and finally a return to music, letting the second version of the song carry what words have softened. This is not a lecture, it's a listening space. So find somewhere comfortable, breathe deeply, and when you're ready, let's begin. Ari's Tapestry of Life. Every life begins midweave, not from scratch, not from silence. We arrive into motion, into a story already unfolding. We are not blank slates. We are born into looms already threaded with ancestry and expectation, with culture and circumstance, with joy, with pain, with things said and unsaid. Threads reach across time, pull taut long before our fingers have ever touched the cloth. Some weaves shimmer, rich with strength, with safety, with belonging. Others are frayed from the start, tugged by trauma, thinned by grief. Most, they are a tangle of both, beauty and tension, color and strain. Resilience knotted with vulnerability. This story follows Ari, but it could just easily follow you or someone you love, because this isn't merely a story about suicide. It's a story about being human, a story of meaning, misplaced, mourned, or momentarily lost, a story of pain carried too long or spoken too late, a story of that quiet, aching pull toward death, which more often than not is tethered to the things that mattered most. In Ari's life, the cloth doesn't unravel in some dramatic snap. It loosens, softly, silently. Not with alarm bells, but with quiet absences. Not all at once, but thread by thread. Sometimes you can see the wear, a drop in weight, a change in gaze, but often you can't. Because it doesn't start at the edge of the cliff. It starts earlier, much earlier. It begins in the moments we tend to overlook, the sigh too quiet to notice, the pause that lingers too long, the dream deferred, the conversation avoided, the thread that slips loose without anyone seeing. And that is where suicide prevention truly begins. Not in crisis, not in the leap, but in the seam, the first shift in the weave, the place where something once held, and now gently does not. So we begin here, with the quiet wear before the visible tear, with the earliest change in the fabric of life, where meaning still lives, where presence still matters, and where hope, if held gently enough, might yet be rewoven.
She came into the world with threads in her hand, woven before she could understand. Stories of silence, love and strain, colors of joy and whispers of pain. Are I not the first to fray, but one whose fabric wore away, not in shouts, but in the quiet wear, the kind that lingers thin as air. This is not just a tale of despair. It's a tapestry torn yet still repairable. Not the fall, but the thinning seam, where the thread first loosens beneath the dream. Sit beside the loom, don't pull, don't press, just trace the cloth and notice the stress. Where it hurts is where it mattered, and where it mattered, life can be gathered. Even her laugh was light, in her eyes deep seas, but beneath a quiet disease. She asked too much, felt not enough, a patchwork soul, tender and tough, the weight of being unseen grew. Not dramatic, just achingly true. Ruminations like threads on repeat, moments of pity, then quiet defeat. We meet her not at the cliff's sharp edge, but where she stood, near the splayed out ledge, before the scream, before the leap, where silence stitched her in too deep. This is not just a tale of despair, it's a story of pain that wanted care, where the thread first tugged and the weave grew thin, is where her reweaving can begin. Sit beside the loom, no rush, no test, just ask what thread still pulls from her chest, because what phrase is tied to what matters, and what matters can stitch new chapters. The cloth is worn, not lost to time. We follow the thread, one tender line. The cloth is worn, not lost to time. We follow the thread, one tender line.
At Progress Guide, we believe in the power of innovation. Just as Sunny's Value Scouts brought values to life for children in a playful, imaginative way, we are now exploring how music, and yes, even AI-generated music, can help us connect, remember, and respond in moments that matter most. We understand that people may have mixed feelings about AI-generated music, and that's okay. Our goal is to see if these melodies can help professionals remember and retain vital information, so that in those critical moments they can respond with clarity, compassion, and values that truly make a difference. We are excited to have you on this journey with us, and we welcome your thoughts and reflections as we explore this new frontier together. This is a slightly longer episode, but in this season you will find that the episodes will be shorter. There will be a song at the beginning, there will be Ari's story in the middle, and then there will be another song. It's actually the same lyrics, but a different version of the song that you will hear again. Next time, we'll begin to trace that first quiet shift in Ari's story, the loosening thread that often hides in plain sight. We'll explore the fabric of life, the conditions before the crisis, the early signs that go unnoticed, the ache that begins before the fall. But before we close, I want to ask something. You have heard two versions of the same song today, one at the beginning, one at the end. Which one spoke to you more? This will be a standing question for pretty much every episode. Was it the opening version, gentle, perhaps inviting? Was it the opening version, gentle, perhaps inviting you in? Or the closing version, echoing the story you have just walked through? This podcast is an experiment in feeling, not just thinking, so I'd love to know, what do you make of this musical approach? Does it help you connect more deeply? Do the lyrics stay with you? You can write in, by writing I mean email in, share a reflection, a thought, even a single line that resonated. Your feedback will help shape future episodes, and I'd be honored to hear from you. Because this isn't just about Ari, it's about the stories unfolding in all of us. So until next time, I invite you to hold this question gently. Where might a thread be loosening in your life or someone else's that you're caring for, or maybe a loved one? And may the music remind you, even frayed threads can be rewoven. Stay connected, stay kind, and I'll see you next time.